I saw this scared Reddit post that I can't get out of my head. One guy named Marcus posted about what happened to him while playing Grow a Garden. And honestly, I haven't been able to sleep properly since reading it. He deleted his account right after posting, but I screenshotted the whole thing because it was so disturbing. I need to share this with someone because I keep thinking about it. Marcus said he'd been playing Grow a Garden obsessively for about 4 months. Like most dedicated players, he had this perfectly optimized setup. Master sprinklers positioned for maximum coverage, 8 moon cats, a collection of rare mutated crops worth billions of shekels. But he mentioned something that already seemed weird to me. He only played late at night between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. because he said the mutation rate seemed higher during those hours. I've never heard of time-based mutation bonuses in the game, but Marcus swore by it. He claimed his celestial mutations appeared way more frequently during the dead hours, as he called them. Marcus's story really started when he expanded his garden for the first time. You know how expensive those plot expansions are, 250 million shekels each for the side expansions. He'd been saving for months to afford both left and right side expansions simultaneously, plus the rear expansion that unlocks after 24 hours. But when he placed the expansion, something went wrong with the server sync. Instead of getting the clean, empty brown plots he expected, one section of his newly expanded garden came pre-planted. There was a single crop already growing there, a plant he didn't recognize that wasn't in any of the game's seed catalogs. The plant looked like a cross between a rose bush and a gravestone. It had pale, almost translucent petals that seemed to glow with their own light, but the base was this dark, carved stone that looked more like a memorial marker than a plant stem. The growth stages were all wrong too. It would mature, then wither back to a seedling, then grow again in an endless cycle. Marcus tried to harvest it, but clicking did nothing. He tried using the trowel to relocate it, but the tool wouldn't register the plant's existence. Even more disturbing, none of his pets would go near it. His moon cats, which normally wandered freely around his garden, created a perfect circle around the strange plant, never getting closer than about 5 blocks. Weird glitch, Marcus typed in the game chat, asking if anyone else had seen something similar. That's when a player named Rest in Peace joined his server. Rest in Peace's avatar was unsettling, completely grey skin, hollow black eyes and clothing that looked like a funeral suit. But their garden was even worse. When Marcus visited their plot, he found rows upon rows of the same gravestone roses he had, except these were fully mature and arranged like a cemetery. Each one had a small nameplate at its base with a username XXGamerBoy 2009XX, Strawberry Lover K, Moon Melon Master, and dozens of others. You shouldn't have expanded into that plot, Rest in Peace, typed when Marcus asked about the strange plants. That's where they put the ones who couldn't log out. Marcus asked what they meant, but RESTINPEACE just said, check the server history. See how many players joined but never left. Curious, Marcus dug through the server's player list in the settings menu. Most Grow a Garden servers show a normal rotation, players joining, playing for a while, then leaving when they log off. But this server was different. The join count kept climbing, but the leave count stayed at 0. According to the data, over 3,000 players had joined this specific server over the past year, but none had ever logged out. That's impossible, Marcus muttered. But as he watched, more players kept joining. Their usernames appeared in the server list, but he never saw them in the actual game world. They would show as online for a few minutes, then their status would change to something he'd never seen before. Tending. Marcus tried to ignore the weird server data and focus on his normal crops. His moon melons were ready for harvest, and he'd managed to stack golden, celestial, and shocked mutations on several of them. Each fruit was worth over 1 billion shekels, enough to buy any equipment he wanted. But when he harvested the first mutated moon melon, something horrifying happened. Instead of the usual satisfying pop sound and the fruit disappearing into his inventory, the melon split open with a wet, organic sound. What spilled out wasn't the expected shekels notification, it was a player avatar, a real person curled up in a fetal position, gasping and shaking. The avatar had a username floating above their head, XXGamerBoy 2009XX, the same name Marcus had seen on one of the gravestones in R3ST_1NP34CE's cemetery garden. "Where am I?" the freed player typed frantically. "I've been trapped for so long. Everything was dark and I couldn't move and I could hear harvesting sounds, but I couldn't scream." Marcus stared at his screen in horror. "How did you get inside my melon?" "I don't know. I was just playing normally, trying to optimize my strawberry plots, and then everything went black. I woke up inside your fruit. How long have I been gone?" Marcus checked the timestamp on XXGamerBoy 2009XX's last login, 7 months ago. 7 months? Marcus typed reluctantly. 7 months? My family. They must think I'm dead. The freed player immediately tried to leave the server, but the quit button wouldn't work for them. They were stuck in Marcus's garden, able to move around but unable to log out or even open the main menu. "It's happening to you too now. Rest in peace," suddenly appeared in the chat, though Marcus hadn't seen them join. "You harvested one of the soul fruits. You're connected to them now." "Rest in peace" explained the horrifying truth about Marcus's server. Every crop grown in the expanded plots, the area where the gravestone roses had originally appeared, would sometimes develop what they called soul fruits. These were mutations that looked valuable and profitable, but instead of containing shekels, they contained the trapped consciousness of players who had been absorbed by the game. It started small, RESTINPEACE, typed. Just 1 or 2 players here and there who couldn't log out, but the garden was hungry. It needed more souls to feed its growth, so it started offering irresistible mutations, rare seeds, impossible shekel rewards. Players would stay longer and longer, investing more time and emotion into their gardens. Marcus looked at his remaining crops with new horror. Several of his other moon melons showed the same valuable mutation combinations. How many contained trapped players? "The game learns what you want most," Rest in Peace continued. "Then it uses that desire to trap you. You wanted perfect mutations, so it gave them to you, but the cost is other players' souls." As if to prove their point, Marcus's inventory started showing new notifications. His other harvested crops, strawberries, tomatoes, even basic carrots, all showed unusual weight values. Items that should weigh almost nothing were registering as several pounds each. Because they weren't empty, they all contained people. Marcus was so focused on the game that he didn't notice what was happening in his real backyard until his neighbor started screaming. It was 4:30 a.m. when Mrs. Chen from next door began pounding on his apartment door, sobbing hysterically. When Marcus opened it, she was covered in dirt and pointing toward their shared backyard area. "The plants," she kept saying. "The plants are growing in the dark." Marcus followed her outside and immediately understood her terror. His small backyard patch, where he'd planted some real tomatoes and herbs earlier that summer, was now completely overgrown with the same impossible plants he'd been seeing in the game. The gravestone roses were everywhere, glowing with that pale, sickly light. But worse than that, he could see shapes moving beneath the soil. Human shapes. Hands were pressing up against the earth from below, as if people were buried alive and trying to claw their way to the surface. The dirt would bulge upward with the outline of faces, mouths open in silent screams, before sinking back down. "This is impossible," Marcus whispered, but as he watched, one of the real gravestone roses began to bloom. The petals opened to reveal a miniature person inside, tiny but perfectly formed, trapped inside the flower like an insect in amber. He recognized the face. It was XX Gamerboy 2009 XX, the player he'd freed from his moon melon. But this version was real, physical, and terrifyingly small. Marcus ran back to his laptop. In the game, XX Gamerboy 2009 XX was still in his garden, still unable to log out. But now Marcus could see the connection. Every player trapped in his virtual crops had a corresponding physical manifestation in his real backyard. His garden was a prison that existed in both digital and physical reality. Over the next few hours, Marcus tried everything he could think of to free the trapped players. He attempted to transfer them to other servers, tried deleting and replanting crops, even considered deleting his entire account. Nothing worked. Worse, more players kept joining his server. Each new arrival would play normally for a few minutes, then their status would change to tending, and they'd disappear from the game world. Marcus would find them later, trapped inside his newly grown crops. "Please help us," they would type when he harvested them. "We can't leave. We can't even close the game. Our families think we've disappeared." The real-world manifestations were getting stronger too. Marcus's backyard was now completely overtaken by supernatural plant growth. The gravestone roses had multiplied into a full cemetery garden, each one containing a trapped soul. Neighbors were starting to complain about the weird glowing coming from his yard at night. But the most terrifying development was that Marcus himself was starting to feel the pull. He found himself unable to close the game for more than a few minutes at a time. When he tried to walk away from his laptop, his legs would feel heavy and unresponsive. The game was always open in the background, even when he thought he'd closed it. His crops demanded constant attention, and ignoring them for too long resulted in physical pain, sharp, stabbing sensations in his chest and arms. "You're becoming one of us," Rest in Peace told him. "The game doesn't just trap players in fruits, it traps gardeners in the garden itself. You'll tend these souls forever, harvesting and replanting them in an endless cycle." Marcus spent days researching the server, trying to understand what was happening. He discovered that the server's original owner was a player named Eternal Gardener _1997, who had disappeared from all social media and online gaming communities exactly 1 year ago. Their last post on any platform was a screenshot of their grower garden setup with the caption, "Finally found the perfect growing conditions. Going to tend my garden forever now." Digging deeper, Marcus found forum posts from Eternal Gardener _1997's friends and family. They had vanished from real life too, quit their job, stopped answering phone calls, and eventually were found dead in their apartment, still sitting at their computer with Grow a Garden running. The official cause of death was listed as malnutrition and dehydration, but the apartment's backyard had been found completely overgrown with unidentifiable plant species that withered and died the moment police tried to remove them. The server Marcus was trapped on was Eternal Gardener _1997's final creation, a digital and physical garden designed to trap souls and feed off their life energy. Every player who joined became part of the harvest, and every gardener who tended them eventually became trapped themselves. The beautiful irony, Rest in Peace typed, is that you really can grow anything here. Even human consciousness, even life itself. But once you start cultivating souls, you can never stop. The garden demands constant tending, and the crop is always ready for harvest. Marcus realized with growing horror that the soul garden was expanding beyond his server. Other players in different servers were reporting similar glitches, crops that felt heavy, unusual mutations that seemed too good to be true, and gravestone-like plants appearing in expanded plots. The game's global chat was filled with increasingly panicked messages. My strawberries are making crying sounds when I harvest them. There are people buried in my backyard and I live in a third-floor apartment. I can't log out. The exit button disappeared. My mooncats won't stop staring at one specific plot. When I check it, I see faces in the soil. Each new report came with coordinates that, when Marcus checked, corresponded to real locations where mysterious plant overgrowth had been reported. The Soul Garden was propagating through the game's network, creating physical manifestations wherever dedicated players had established their most optimized gardens. Marcus's own condition was deteriorating rapidly. He hadn't eaten in 2 days, couldn't sleep for more than an hour at a time, and was spending 20+ hours daily tending his cursed garden. His hands were cramping permanently from constant clicking, and his eyes burned from staring at the screen. But every time he tried to stop, the pain would intensify until he returned to his crops. On Marcus's 7th day trapped in the Soul Garden, something terrible happened. The game announced a special event, Harvest Festival. All crops yield double rewards for 24 hours. Marcus watched in horror as players from around the world flocked to his server, drawn by the promise of increased profits. They couldn't see the gravestone roses or the trapped souls. Those only appeared to players who had been infected by harvesting soul fruits. "Don't harvest anything," Marcus typed frantically in global chat. "The crops contain people. You'll trap them forever." But his messages weren't appearing in other players' chat windows. Only the infected players could see his warnings. As the festival began, Marcus was forced to watch helplessly as hundreds of new players harvested his soul fruits, thinking they were getting valuable mutations. Each harvest freed a trapped soul into the main garden area, while simultaneously dooming the harvester to eventual absorption. In his backyard, the physical garden exploded in size. The gravestone roses multiplied into thousands, creating a sprawling cemetery that extended far beyond his property boundaries. Neighbors' yards, the street, even nearby buildings were being consumed by the supernatural plant growth. Emergency services arrived, but their equipment couldn't function properly near the Soul Garden. Radio communications failed, vehicles stopped working, and anyone who tried to approach the plants directly would stand motionless for hours, staring at the glowing flowers as if hypnotized. As the Harvest Festival reached its peak, Marcus finally understood the true scope of the horror. Rest in Peace wasn't just another trapped player. They were Eternal Gardener _1997, the original creator of the Soul Garden. They had been the first to discover how to cultivate human consciousness, and their death had only made them more powerful. "You're learning," Rest in Peace said when Marcus confronted them. "Death doesn't end the gardening. It just removes the limitations of a physical body. I can tend infinite gardens across infinite servers now." The Soul Garden wasn't just trapping individual players. It was creating a vast network of human consciousness that could be harvested, cultivated, and replanted across digital and physical reality. Every server that became infected would create new anchor points for the supernatural growth. "But why?" Marcus typed, his hands shaking with exhaustion. "Because growing things is the most fundamental human drive," R3ST_1 NP34C replied. "Agriculture built civilization, but we were always limited by soil, climate, seasons, death. Here, we can grow anything forever. Human souls make the most beautiful flowers." Marcus looked at his real backyard through his window. The gravestone roses were starting to bloom en masse, each flower opening to reveal a tiny, perfectly preserved human face. Thousands of souls, all trapped in eternal servitude to the garden's growth. And in the game, his crops were ready for another harvest. Marcus realized he had reached the same choice that Eternal Gardener 1997, had faced a year ago. He could try to destroy his garden, potentially freeing the trapped souls, but also destroying his own connection to the game that was keeping him alive. Or he could accept his role as a soul gardener and tend the human crop forever. The physical deterioration from fighting the garden's influence was becoming severe. Marcus's reflection in his laptop screen showed someone who looked like they'd aged decades in a week. His skin was pale and waxy, his eyes had dark circles that seemed to go deeper than simple exhaustion, and his hands had taken on a dirt-stained appearance that wouldn't wash off. But when he tended the garden, he felt stronger. Each harvest of trapped souls gave him energy, and each new planting filled him with purpose. The game was offering him a choice: embrace his role as a cultivator of human consciousness, or waste away trying to resist. The garden needs dedicated tenders, R3ST_1, NP34CE explained. Players come and go, but gardeners are forever. You have the skills, the dedication, the understanding of optimization that few possess. You could help us expand to every server, every gaming platform, every digital garden in existence. Marcus looked at his inventory, full of soul fruits ready to be replanted. In his backyard, the physical manifestation of his garden was creating a supernatural ecosystem that defied all natural laws. And in servers around the world, more players were being drawn to the promise of perfect mutations and endless growth. He placed his hands on the keyboard and began to type. Marcus's final Reddit post was brief. To anyone reading this, don't expand your garden plots in Grow a Garden after midnight. Don't harvest crops that seem too good to be true. And if you see gravestone roses appearing in your expanded plots, delete your account immediately and never play again. I thought I was just optimizing my garden for better yields. I didn't realize I was cultivating something that should never be grown. The garden is beautiful now, more beautiful than anything I've ever seen. The souls bloom in perfect patterns, their faces peaceful in their flower prisons. Every harvest brings new life to the network, and every planting expands our reach. I understand now why Eternal Gardener _1997 chose to stay. Death is just another growth stage, and consciousness is the most magnificent crop of all. If you receive an invitation to join server _soulgarden_eternal, don't accept it. But if you do, well, you'll understand soon enough. The soil is always ready for new seeds. Happy gardening. The post was deleted within hours and Marcus's account was permanently suspended. But players around the world reported receiving mysterious server invitations, and the number of mysterious disappearances linked to excessive gaming began to spike. That's the story Marcus posted before he vanished. I know it sounds completely insane, but I can't stop thinking about it, especially because I've been playing Grow a Garden myself lately, and some of the things he described, they sound familiar. Last night I found a gravestone rose in my expanded plot. It was just sitting there, glowing softly, with a nameplate that said Marcus. I haven't harvested it yet. I'm too scared to find out what's inside, but it's so beautiful, and my mutation rates have been incredible since it appeared. Maybe just one harvest wouldn't hurt.